Hello, hello, hello. Hope you had a great week. Hope you guys all have had a great week. So, welcome back to another cozy, relaxing ASMR video. Today I'm going to do a special interest type of video, so this is most likely not going to be a video for everyone, but this is for those of you guys who enjoy hearing me talk about my interests. I'm going to focus on two fictional series I like, and in two different categories. One is science fiction, the other is fantasy. So I'm going to first begin with Divergent, you know, that dystopian science fiction series, and then I'm going to talk about Harry Potter, that super famous fantasy series. I'm going to talk a little about the story, the timeline, stuff like that. Just going to be me rambling on about these two franchises, okay? So I hope you guys can sort of enjoy that. Yeah. Okay, I'm just going to begin. I'm going to begin with Divergent and then talk about Harry Potter afterwards. Okay. So we're going to begin with Divergent. And Divergent is a science fiction dystopian series, because as some of you guys may already know, in the 2010s, when it comes to fiction, dystopian franchise dominated the fiction market, from Hunger Games, Divergent, to Maze Runner and other things, You know, these days it's really all about time travel and the multiverse, apparently, but in the 2010s, it was dystopian literature and science fiction stuff. And Divergent is one of those prominent, renowned dystopian franchises. It's 3 to 4 books, or it's 3 main books and a 4th book which sort of told a few short stories from the perspective of another character, and 3 movies. So yeah, Divergent is set in the far future. It's set in the far future. It's set in a far-off future dystopian Chicago, where society has been divided into 5 groups of factions called for abnegation, candor, amity, erudite, and dauntless. Yeah, and these 5 factions have different ideals. And when people in this society turn 16 years old, they have to choose their factions. They're often born and raised in a specific faction, but they can change faction if they wish when they turn 16 years old during the choosing ceremony. However, once they choose that faction becomes their life, their family, and stuff like that. However, there is a scary part of this society, and that is if you are a Divergent. And a Divergent is someone who sort of fits into more than one faction. Who sort of represent that independent thinking, where you fit into more than one category. And the leaders of dauntless and erudite Hans individuals were Divergents, as they consider Divergents a threat to the established society. And the main character is Divergent, so she has to keep that hidden from the powers within these 2 factions. And in addition to the 5 factions, there is also the factionless, and these are people that failed their qualifications tests to become a full-fledged member of the various factions, and they are really just literally thrown out onto the street and have no home or family aside from the other factionless. So it's a dystopic society, I was going to put the book down now. So yeah, and talk about it. No. According to the first Divergent movie, the year which this story and this trilogy is set in is apparently 3079. So it's essentially set a millennia into the future. If the film hit the year the film claims is correct, it's set a millennia into the future in 3079. So it's a far off future area. Chicago is not in a great shape at this time and place. There is a lot of places in the city which are ruins. You know, it's not a thriving city anymore. It never becomes exactly clear what happened to the Chicago, but it is believed that some sort of war or catastrophic event happened in the past which has left parts of Chicago completely crumbling. And now I'm going to talk a little about the Divergent Timeline and stuff like that. And there are going to be spoilers here, so for those of you who have never read or watched Divergent or read the trilogy and stuff like that, be aware that there are some major spoilers coming in now. Just saying. Okay? Okay, so spoiler alert. So as we learn in the sequel books at the end of Insurgent and during Allegiant, Chicago is one of several experiments which were created as a consequence of the Purity War. And the Purity War apparently must, if the movies are correct with the year 3079, when the Purity War shall, from information we have gleaned from the book, have occurred 150 to 200 years prior, so we are in the 28 to 2900s somewhere. We know it occurred a long time before the book. The Purity War was fought between people with damaged genes and pure genes. And the people with damaged genes became damaged. When genes became damaged due to experiments which apparently shall have begun as early as the 21st century, where people started to experiment with genes, trying to improve the genes of people in the world. Only it backfired and created damaged genes instead. I believe that was the story. It is a year ago I read it, so the information may not be 100% correct, but I believe that was the gist of it. And thus a major war broke out, apparently, I assume at some point during the 28 to 2900s. And a major war broke out. It was called the Purity War, and it was a really awful war, but eventually, well, the people with normal genes apparently won and sealed the people with genetically damaged genes into various city experiments, Chicago being one of them. They essentially erased the memories of the war and created the details of it, using some sort of serum to erase the memories and creating a city experiment with factions, and essentially hoping that once the population of this city reached a sufficient numbers of divergent, essentially people with genes which had over time fixed itself, then they hoped that the various experiments, including Chicago, would be ready to rejoin the world. So, so this is essentially that. So that's essentially some of the timeline of the Divergent series. It's quite a dystopic timeline. We know what when Triss, the main character of the story, attends the choosing ceremony in 3079. It is, at least in the books, mentioned that their ancestors created a faction system to ensure peace, essentially. So that means that the people of the Divergent probably know that there has been some kind of war in the distant past, but we no longer remember the details of it. Of course, during the course of the books, a new war breaks out in Chicago due to the whole plan of the established powers in erudite and dauntless to erase divergence from the population. So yeah. So we can essentially clearly say that in the world of Divergent, society isn't in the best shape it's been. It's a far off future time, a completely different area in this fictional future. And yeah. And you know, and in it Chicago has been like completely separated from the rest of the world. The people who live in Chicago aren't aware what's going on outside in the rest of the world, and the characters don't journey to the rest outside the fence before in Allegiant, and first when they start realizing what's happening in the rest of the world, you know. So yeah, but we can assume, although it is in the books mentioned that there may at some point in the peace period have been a rebellion by the factionless, but this was apparently reset by the people that controlled the experiment. They essentially erased the memories of people and reset it, because time wasn't in for that kind of conflict then. But anyway, we can at least assume that between the period we are and the events of Divergent, there has been a long peace period. Like a peace period which may have lasted for 1 to 2 centuries. So, anyway, that was just me talking a little about Divergent and its timeline, also doing some spoilery stuff here. Now, let's move on to Harry Potter. I'm going to talk about Harry Potter. I'm going to bring you the game Hogwarts Legacy to showcase this. Okay, so this is Hogwarts Legacy, and this is from the world of Harry Potter, and Harry Potter has an intricate and deep timeline, so I'm not going to go into all the details of this timeline. We're just going to do the general picture today. You know, because the timeline has been, there's lots of lore in Harry Potter filled in through background information in the books, in Hogwarts Legacy, in companion books like the Tales of Beetle the Bard, Quidditch Through the Ages, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them and stuff like that. So yeah. The Harry Potter universe centers on the magical world of Harry Potter, and yeah, and this is the game called Hogwarts Legacy. I'm going to go into the story and setting now soon. So, and most of the story in this universe centers around the magical wizarding school of Hogwarts. Okay, so in the Harry Potter books, we follow a boy named Harry Potter, who essentially attends the Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. It turns out that there is a hidden wizarding community living in the world. The non-magical people, which these wizards call muggles, essentially us, are not aware that this wizarding world exists, but it does. Although they exist in secret, and they have concealed their existence from non-magic people for many centuries. So Harry Potter, he is raised in an abusive muggle family, and his abusive aunt and uncle who emotionally abuse him pretty much every day. But when he gets 11, he gets an invitation letter to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. And this changes his life and his world, and he meets new friends, goes on magical adventures, take lessons in magic, classes in magic and potions and stuff like that. Everything magical and wizardry, you know. But he also confronts his fate, because he's known as the boy who lived, because his parents, who were wizards and who were a wizard and a witch, were killed when he was 1 year old by a dark wizard called Voldemort, who by the wizarding community he is so feared, he is called for he who must not be named, as many do not even dare mention his name. But Harry Potter is the only one known to have survived this dark wizard's killing curse. And when Voldemort essentially, there's a annoying fly here by the way, when Voldemort essentially cast the killing curse, tried to cast the killing curse at baby Harry Potter, the curse rebonded and sort of sapped Voldemort of all its powers, and this essentially rid the wizarding world of his evil, at least temporarily. And thus Harry Potter became famous and known as the boy who lived. And during the course of the 7 books, or the 8 movies, because the books were filmatized, they made into film. Oh my god, damn, annoying. Shoo. There's a super annoying fly here. I could of course have just edited out this, but you know, I'm just going to add it in because it's kind of a funny moment. So. The wizarding, you know, he has to, during the course of the books and movies, confront his fate and confront this Dark Lord, Voldemort, who is seeking to regain his power and return to his full strength. And I'm going to add some slight spoilers here. The battle with Voldemort becomes more and more intense as the books or movies goes on, and eventually a new wizarding war breaks out, and Voldemort really establishes a reign or control of the wizarding world. So the story becomes darker and more epic the longer into the series you go. But I'm not going to spoil anyone, but it's a very exciting series, you can say, and it follows Harry Potter from the age of 11 to the age of 18 through his 7 years at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. It's really enjoyable, an enjoyable fantasy series. But in relation to this, there is a major timeline because a lot happened before the time of Harry Potter. So we have the Fantastic Beasts movies set like 70 years before that time of Harry Potter. You have Hogwarts Legacy set about a century before Harry Potter. So now I'm going to go into the timeline, and it's going to be some spoilers here, some slight spoilers. So be aware of that for those of you who have never read or watched this series. Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry were founded by the 4 founders, Godric Gryffindor, Salazar Slytherin, Rowena Ravenclaw, and Helga Hufflepuff, in the medieval ages during the late 10th century, I believe. And they founded 4 different houses. Godric Gryffindor founded Gryffindor, a house for the brave. Salazar Slytherin founded Slytherin, a house for the ambitious. Rowena Ravenclaw founded a house for the wise, called for Ravenclaw. And Helga Hufflepuff founded a house, I think I said found a race, sorry, I meant founded a house. And Helga Hufflepuff founded a house for everyone who did not fit into these other categories. And this were essentially also a house for the hardworking and loyal. And this house was called for Hufflepuff. So, and these are the 4 Hogwarts houses, and when students attend Hogwarts, they're sorted into one of the 4 houses. So yeah, there is even, or at least there was, a test on something called Pottermore, where individuals in our real world could take the test and sort of be sorted into a Hogwarts house. For those wondering which house I belong in, I'm a Hufflepuff, or rather I'm actually both a Gryffindor and a Hufflepuff. I'm a Hatstall, because I got the Gryffindor the first time I took the test, and then Hufflepuff most other times. And also Gryffindor one other time actually, so I have chosen Hufflepuff, but I was actually sort of Gryffindor originally. But I had to sort of take the test a new time a few years later, and so Gryffindor and Hufflepuff, that's sort of my houses, but I choose Hufflepuff. Anyway, although I am low Gryffindor too. And I have great respect for Ravenclaw and Slytherin too, of course, for those of you guys who have been sorted into houses. But anyway, Hufflepuff. But with Gryffindor as my clear second choice. Anyway, yeah. And this is probably because my values are courage and loyalty. That's sort of my values. Honor, courage and loyalty. That's my values. So that's probably why I have sort of been chosen for these two houses. Anyway, yeah. And by the way, if you want to tell me in the comments which house you were sorted into, and whether that reflects your values and beliefs or not, be free to do so. I think it's fun. Anyway, essentially, during the coming millennia, during the last millennia, the sport of Quidditch was developed, broomsticks and stuff like that. Not going to go into the details of that sport, but that's a big sport in the Harry Potter universe. But of course, until the 1690s, wizards and witches lived openly among Muggles. But in the 1690s, or maybe in 1692, I believe, wizards and witches went underground and established the Statute of Secrecy, keeping their existence hidden from the Muggle world from every year, from then and onwards, And I think which also included modifying Muggles' memories using magic and stuff like that. And ever since, wizards have kept their existence hidden, and during that time the Ministry of Magic was formed to oversee this major reform of wizarding society, and thus the Minister for Magic became sort of the state leader for the British Wizarding Society. Now we're going to jump forward to Hogwarts Legacy, which is set in 1890. It's a game, and it's set in 1890, the 1890s, where you play as a student about to discover an ancient secret from the past of the wizarding world. A fifth-year student who is a late attendant of Hogwarts, getting to choose his or her own house and stuff like that. It's a role-playing game, so it's a really cool and good game. A surprisingly good game, allowing you to explore Hogwarts and the grounds around it. In the 1890, there is dark criminal research known as Ashwinders active in the regions around Hogwarts, led by the ruthless Victor Rookwood. This is sort of a criminal wizard gang. Where's the fly again? Criminal wizard gang. And yeah, that was me touching a muffin wrapper. Was just we're sort of a criminal wizard gang, and they are in league with a goblin called for Ramble, who hates wizards and who is essentially trying to lead a new goblin rebellion, because there's been some conflicts between goblin and wizards throughout the centuries, most famously in 1752 during that famous goblin rebellion some people in the story speak about. Anyway, so that's essentially what's happening in the 1890s. Now we're going to move a little ahead to the story of the area of the Fantastic Beasts films, the 1920s to 1940s, during the global wizarding war. During that period, a wizard called for Grindelwald, a dark wizard, a very famous dark wizard called for Gellert Grindelwald, is trying to gain power over the wizarding world, the entire global wizarding world, and he's trying to also lead a war against Muggles, because he believed that wizards shouldn't cover in fear anymore. He believed that wizards should openly rule Muggles. He doesn't say that out loud, but he believes that. And and so he has those dark ideals where he believes that wizards and witches are above non-magic people, and wizards and witches should rule non-magic people. They shouldn't live in fear of non-magic people. They should rule them. That's Grindelwald's beliefs. And in that relation, he has followers, because there are also people in the wizarding society who believe that they are superior to non-magic people, and also to people who are born from non-magic people, who are essentially, You see, in the wizarding society, there is a concept called for, by these people who believe in those kind of dark ideals, they consider themselves purebloods if they're born of pure wizarding families, but occasionally people from Muggle families, non-magic families, will get acceptance into Hogwarts because for some reason there are some people born in Muggle families which displays magic talent. However, some purebloods call these people for mudbloods, a condescending, cruel term for people born into non-magic families. So Grindel was sort of part of this dark ideology, wanting a pureblood wizarding rule. He is eventually defeated by the famous wizard Albus Dumbledore, who later becomes headmaster of Hogwarts, and is a very powerful wizard. You know, and Albus Dumbledore is also the only wizard which Voldemort later on fears. Now we're going to move on to the next area of wizarding history, in wizarding Britain, because in the 1970s a new infamous dark wizard starts to take power. In Britain, he leads a campaign, a dark campaign. He established followers called for the Death Eaters, who is his followers, and he is called for the Dark Lord. And Voldemort essentially wants to establish a pureblood wizarding rule in Britain. He essentially wages a war against the people who oppose him, and it's because of this the conflict becomes known as the Wizarding War, or later on the First Wizarding War. Because he and his followers kills anyone who opposes him and their ideas for the future of wizarding society. Eventually, he of course meets his match in baby Harry Potter and loses his powers, and once Harry Potter becomes famous and the wizarding world once again gets to live in peace for a few years. But, and now there are some spoilers here, 13 years later Voldemort regains his powers and once again enters new confrontations with teenage Harry Potter, who is the only one who can stop Voldemort. And Voldemort gains even greater power now during the Second Wizarding War, which is set in the 1990s, and eventually he gains control of wizarding society and the ministry, and sets in a puppet minister. He becomes the ruler of wizarding society, and things become really dark as he starts to kill and hunt mudbloods. His regime starts to kill and hunt mudbloods systematically. Many wizards who oppose him has to go underground. He takes control of the wizarding school of Hogwarts, and they even start killing muggles for fun. So it really becomes the ultimate battle between good and evil in the final book and the two final movies. And this is sort of the climax sort of comes in the Battle of Hogwarts, where Harry Potter and Voldemort and the forces of good and the forces of evil comes to the ultimate confrontation. So yeah, so that's essentially some of the Harry Potter timeline for you guys. This was just me being super nerdy today, talking about stuff. I think there's a plane or helicopter in there. Oh, that's loud. Oh, that was loud. I'm sorry if that wasn't the most relaxing conclusion to the video, but yeah, okay. But I hope it didn't bother you guys too much. You know, I decided I wanted this to be more of a natural video where I don't edit out moments like that. I could do that, but I want this to be more natural. Hope you guys enjoyed me just rambling on about things I was interested in and about nerdy stuff. And I want to add one more thing, one more positive thing. When people attend Hogwarts, they really get lessons in magic, in potions, and they also can play the magical sport of Quidditch, and they get to work with magic beasts and stuff like that. And you know, when Hogwarts has existed for a millennia, so many generations has come and gone in this magical wizarding school. Anyway, wish you guys the best, hope you guys enjoyed. Sorry it became a long video, but I just enjoyed rambling today. Wish you all the best, and hope that despite the noises, you get a great night of sleep and a great week.